I think what we're facing right now is a very strong effort by the U.S. administration, and I'm afraid it will be carried on regardless of who wins the election, an effort to replace international law, real international law, with something called the rules-based international order, which doesn't exist. It exists only in the context of how U.S. officials want it to exist. So the U.S. says, this country is violating the rules-based international order. Then you say, well, which international law are you talking about? Then they don't want to talk about it because the question of hypocrisy emerges, that they are prepared to go after Russia, not inappropriately necessarily, in its invasion of Ukraine, but the very idea that the Israeli occupation for so many years, the Israeli system of apartheid, and now Israeli genocide in Gaza is somehow illegal, would never be something they would acknowledge. So we're seeing a way of undermining international law in the method of focusing on something that doesn't exist, called the rules-based international order. The United States is enabling the genocide in Gaza. When President Biden or Vice President Kamala Harris or any member of Congress or anyone else says, we need a ceasefire, what they have to mean is we need to stop sending the weapons that enable this genocide to continue. Saying you want a ceasefire while sending a virtually unlimited amount of deadly weapons that have been responsible, overwhelmingly U.S. weapons, responsible for the killing so far of over 41,000 Palestinians in Gaza that we know about, probably another 10 or more thousand who have died under the rubble, more than 100,000 injured, would not be possible without the U.S. weapons, without the U.S. money. Billions and billions of dollars of our tax money is being sent to Israel to continue the slaughter of civilians across Gaza. And at the same time, we hear our leaders saying, we're working tirelessly, we're working around the clock for a ceasefire. Well, you're not. You have to do one thing. It's not to say we need a ceasefire. It's to stop sending the weapons. That will bring about a ceasefire. We have seen in the year since the war against Gaza began on October 8th of last year, we have seen the rise of an extraordinary broad movement demanding a ceasefire. And we have also seen that movement recognize how the need for a ceasefire has changed the very definition of what a ceasefire is. So a ceasefire is no longer just stop dropping the bombs. That's certainly part of it. But a ceasefire has to mean three things. It has to mean stop killing people, stop dropping the bombs, stop shooting the guns, get the tanks out. And it has to mean the absolute massive amounts of humanitarian aid going in, funding UNRWA as much as it needs, which is going to be way more than it ever needed before because of the massive destruction. And the third part of the new definition of a ceasefire is stop sending the weapons. So that's what this new administration, whoever leads it, must do. And that is to listen to this movement where we now have 70% of Democrats, 61% of all people in the country in the United States, saying either condition the aid or stop the aid to Israel altogether. Stop sending the money, stop sending the guns, because it's making everything worse.